Oh, so we had such a lovely and weird scripture today, didn't we? Did anybody remember that story about Abram? The 6 offerings and the weird dream, and there's some evidence that it's covenant language in there. But there's one part that I really want to focus on is the idea of these possibilities, these things that will happen, these things that God intends and promises. And we tend to, how do I want to say this? We will take stories like these from the scriptures and we'll say, well, this is how it is all the time. And yet when he told Abram this, 400 years later, when everybody is making their way into the promised land, everything was already taken care of. I mean, that was happening then, right? So all of these things had been set up ahead of time, and as those people made it into the promised land, it was already going. And the language that kind of goes on in the church is, well, we're still back here with Abram and not up here with the promised land. And it restricts us a lot in the realm of possibilities that stand before us, or how we even perceive things. For example, you all know what this is, right? It's a matchbox. Don't ask me why I couldn't find like the big one. That's much more dramatic. You have the big one. And if you look inside very carefully, you can see fire. I have a very quizzical look at Grace's face and a couple others. She's like, can I? We all know it's in here somewhere. Hidden in the box. We can't say that it's not there. It just hasn't manifested yet. But it's there. And if any of you doubt me, I have more, and I can send these to your grandchildren and show them how to use them. Oh, see, now you know the fire's there, don't you? We know that this sanctuary is filled with TV and radio waves. It just is. But we can't perceive them until I bring a TV or a radio in here. And then suddenly that thing which has always been there manifests itself. All these things need just one or two more conditions to be met for them to manifest themselves. We also, if we think about it later, we also know that the flame is outside of the box. The flame is also in this room. Because there's oxygen in this room. And you can't have a fire without oxygen. It is literally the definition of fire. Rapid oxidation. We also know that there's fire in my fingers. Which can provide one last condition for the flame to appear. So we can look into this box and we can have a little conversation. Hello, my dear little thing. I know you're in there, even though I can't see you. Yes, sir, you're right. Thank you. So I'm going to help you. I'm going to bring about that other condition that you need to manifest. I know you're there. I know you're there. Please come out. There you are. Don't burn me. Now, where did you come from? You didn't come from anywhere. Not the north, or the south, or the east, or the west. It was there the whole time. Just waiting for the conditions to be right in order to manifest, to be seen. Well, where did you go? Well, I didn't go anywhere. Didn't go to the north, the south, or the east, or the west. They appear when the conditions are right. And when the conditions are not met, I hide, waiting for the conditions to be right again. Until then, I've taken another form. I don't know if any of you in here will recognize what this next object is. And before any of you question me, I did not pull this off the stalk. A deer in my backyard did. But if we look at this, we know that, well, first of all, where did it come from? A seed? It didn't come from anywhere. Remember? It was always there the whole time. When any farmer goes out with the seeder and crosses the field, do they say they're planting corn seed, or are they planting corn?
Planting corn.
You're planting corn. You know that it's there. Not all the conditions have been met for it to take this form yet. You can't say that the corn isn't there, otherwise why plant it in the first place? You know that it's there, that just a certain few conditions need to be met. And you get peace. And when you plant corn, you make sure that you are certain all the proper conditions are met. Yes? Otherwise, why plant it in the first place? Who knows what it's going to look like then? We have a tendency in the church to say things like, well, it'll all be fine. It's in God's time. Or God's timing. And it leaves us very passive. And puts all of the work on God. What farmer would plant corn and then walk away saying, God's got it? I don't have to do a single thing. God's got it taken care of. I don't have to make sure that it's watered. I don't have to make sure that it's fertilized. I don't have to make sure any of that, because in God's time, that will appear. And what else do we need? What else do we need from God before we start taking some action of our own.
Faith.
Faith is a good thing. This is one of the things that I enjoy about, reading the Old Testament and going on even into Paul, no matter how much I disagree. The constant argument is, for God always goes back to this thing, I brought you out of Egypt. I freed you from slavery and made you a people and gave you a land of your own. And that's where it stops. He's like, what more do you need from me? Paul will say, we were freed from slavery to sin and death. As though choosing the same language as the Old Testament for some reason. It's really weird. And again, the question is, what more do you need from God? You want him to bring you a sandwich? Is God your cosmic concierge? What more do you need from God that you don't already have? Yes, some things are out of our control. You're never going to be able to plant a kernel of corn and in 5 seconds there's a whole stalk and ear. Time is just one of those things. It's out of our control. Sometimes other people can throw a wrench into the gears. In fact, that whole thing, I don't know if the iniquity of the Amorites is incomplete. I mean, that's a whole sermon right there on what the land will do to people who don't treat it right. And right now, we're in a world where people just don't trust organized religion anyway. And there's nothing really that we can do about that except our best. Try to be decent people, non-judgmental, faithful to God. And part of the problem, I think, with being so passive in all of this, of saying God will take care of it in God's time, is that we've forgotten how to use matches. If I were to hand this box of matches to somebody who's never seen them and has no idea what they're used for, what are they going to do with them? They might flounder around and accidentally discover something, but they'll probably spend a whole lot of time flailing around, doing nothing, or trying the same thing over and over again, if that doesn't sound familiar. This is kind of what churches do. We flail around a lot. We do the same things over and over again. You know what Einstein called that? Doing the same things over and over again and expecting a different result? He called that insanity. I've told you, plenty of times I've warned you about my nerdiness. I play video games, and there's one of the bad guys in one of the video games, as a matter of fact, makes a similar statement. He says, what is insanity if not a denial of reality? And the reality is, we keep doing the same things. And they don't work. And so we go, well, God will take care of it in God's time. How about we just try something new? Try something different. Churches everywhere are worried about the future. Everywhere. 75% of all churches in the United States worship 50 or less on Sundays. But the church that we're hoping for already exists. Just like the flame and the corn. Just need one or two more conditions to be met. And it'll appear. It's waiting for us. I promise you, it's never going to appear if we keep doing the same things that have not met the conditions required yet and will not ever. But this is where faith comes in, right? We'll find it. If we're willing, even if we're just willing to think differently about how we approach it. And if you listen really hard, you might even hear it speaking back to you. Where are you? I'm here. For lo, I am with you